Hello everyone. Thank you for joining into the session. I will give you an introduction in the new SAP HANA Readiness Assessment for ABAP add-on. We will start with a short overview on the SAP Business Suite powered by SAP HANA. Then we will go on and move to the SAP HANA Readiness Assessment for ABAP add-on service. I will give you a process overview. I will show you how HANA Readiness report will look like, and I will point out what are the benefits for ISV to support SAP Business Suite powered by SAP HANA. First of all, I want to give a short overview. What does it mean? What is SAP Business Suite powered by SAP HANA? Usually you should be aware of what SAP Business Suite is. We have here a real-time planning and execution application with the components like SAP ERP, CRM, SDM, PLM, and so on. All this powered by SAP NetWeaver. And of course we have a user experience with the different kinds of user interfaces like the traditional SAP UI, a new HTML5 UI, as well as the mobile integration of mobile applications. All this is typically powered by a database. In case of Business Suite powered by SAP HANA, this is obviously the SAP HANA database, the database provided by SAP themselves. What is the benefit of this? This is that we have now the capability of doing real-time reporting and analytics on the data which is created by the SAP Business Suite. So you don't have to split your data or to replicate your data in a different, let's say, business warehouse or something else for doing your reporting or analytics. You can do this in the same system on the same data. Main information is what you should keep in mind. SAP Business Suite powered by SAP HANA means SAP HANA is the primary database for SAP Business Suite powered by SAP HANA. Looking a little bit deeper into SAP HANA, what are the core capabilities? Of course, they have a column and row store. So compared with the traditional database, it's not just the row store, but you have the possibility to define column tables as well. Then you have the SQL interface for accessing data in column and row store. You have an in-memory compression for less main memory access. You have a multi-core parallelization for the parallelization of single query operations. And you have a two-tier architecture, meaning you have, let's say, a presentation layer and you have a database layer where also the application logic resides. So it's a move away from a more traditional three-tier architecture, which previously the SAP Business Suite had as a foundation. Furthermore, you can have a single persistency for online transaction processing. So that's what traditionally is what the SAP Business Suite does, and the online analytical processing. So this analytical processing can now be done on the same data foundation. And what is also a characteristic is you have the chance to push the application code close to the data, to the business data, meaning technically speaking, you have the application logic residing nearer at the database, not at the level of an application server. Additional capabilities of SAP HANA are R support. R support is a language for statistical computing. This is an open source software which you have to install separately from SAP HANA. So it's built in, but you need to install it. because it's not shipped with the SAP HANA software. Then you have the possibility to do the data modeling with the SAP HANA Studio. We provide some libraries, for example, for predictive analytics, business functions, and mathematical functions, as well as a kind of development platform with the so-called Extended Application Services, or XS. And we have an own script language which extends the possibilities you have with native SQL. That's called SQL script. I already mentioned that SAP HANA combines the possibility to do online analytical processing as well as online transaction processing on the same data. So to point this out a little bit more clearly, of course you have advantages if you have, let's say, a database which does only online analytical processing, or that is especially designed to do only online transaction processing. So if you have a combination of both, you have advantages and you have some disadvantages. For example, for OLAP queries on huge amounts of data, it usually takes a lot of time. If you are using column tables for this purpose, this information is physically stored next to each other. So you can significantly increase the speed of data queries. And in case of HANA, you have the chance to push your code down to the database. For example, by using so-called calculation views and scripting. Usually this will result in improvement of the response time for typical OLAP queries by several orders of magnitude. So you have a real advantage for this analytical queries. In case of online transaction processing, where you usually rely on select statements, these select statements are typically not faster. If you have select statements over several columns, this might even be slower than for a pure row-based database. And further disadvantage, you have, of course, a higher CPU consumption. To look a little bit more deeply in the difference between a row and columns data storage, usually relational databases store data simply in rows. So the SAP HANA database stores data either in rows or columns. So you have to decide for each of your own tables whether you want to apply a row or a column store. In case of the SAP Business Suite, most tables are automatically converted or migrated from a row to a column store. You have to keep this in mind. So, because this can result in different performance behavior. Why is this the case? On the right side, here is an example for the different usage of column and row storage. Depending on the kind of query you have, so if you, for example, have a column operation where you select the sum of the order value, it's more beneficial if you use a column store for this kind of operations. If you, on the other hand, have something like a row operation, like a select statement, which select all columns for a given record, then it's more beneficial if you have a row store. So, because SAP HANA combines the benefits of both row and column storage, you have flexibility to decide what kind of table type is better for your purpose. Okay, if you are looking to move your existing ABAP add-on to SAP HANA, we would recommend a stepwise approach. So the first step, or the highest priority, would be that you safeguard your current investment. So that means, of course, that your ABAP add-on will, after a migration to SAP HANA, will be still working. So functionally correct, and ideally, you will not see some performance regression. Performance regression means that also a customer does use more expensive hardware. The performance of your add-on would go down. Of course, that's something which a customer would not like very much. Therefore, you have to take care that at least a migration to SAP HANA will not lead to any kind of performance degradation. Then, especially, you have to check whether you are using pool or cluster tables in your add-on. If this is the case, you must be aware that these tables will automatically converted to transparent tables. And then the behavior of this table entries and the select statements you do on this table changes. So also your coding might be syntactically still correct. It might work not correctly any longer, and you might select wrong entries from your tables. Therefore, you must check this and your coding as well. And you have to check whether you are using more than 2 billion records, because this is currently not supported, that this many records will be migrated to a transparent table in the SAP HANA database. After safeguarding your current investment, the next step would be that you improve your coding for all platforms. So that you, for example, check out whether you have select statements without a where clause, or where you did not specify all the fields in the select statements. The third step would be that you make use of specific SAP HANA artifacts, for example, calculation views and or database procedures. You can do this because you have the possibility to check which database is running with your SAP Business Suite. For example, you can check a system parameter SYDBSys, and if this has a value HDB, then you know you're running on a SAP Business Suite, which is powered by SAP HANA. Next step is there are many tools for code and performance analysis SAP provides. There are, for example, transactions like workload monitor or statistical records monitor, where you can get an impression how your system is used by a customer. You can have an overview how many work processes are running and which is the capacity of the work processes. You can check the memory usage, so you can check the overall status of your SAP systems with a couple of transactions. Furthermore, you can do a more deeply analysis. For example, you can check the ABAP runtime analysis, or you can use the SAP Code Inspector for doing statistic code check. The SAP Code Inspector has been enhanced so that you have some specific SAP HANA checks where you can check whether your coding is optimized for SAP HANA or not. And for example, we have a quite new tool. It's called the SQL Monitor. This has been introduced to analyze specific parts of your applications which are heavily used and which show some potential for performance improvement. So you have to imagine there are, of course, many options where you could do some improvement of your coding, but it makes, of course, sense to improve the coding which is most heavily used and not each and everything. So because you have to concentrate on something where you start with your improvement. Then we have, of course, a lot of information available, specifically for the SAP Business Suite powered by SAP HANA, or about SAP HANA in general. Then there are specific SAP nodes available where you get more information which specific aspects you have to take care of if you are migrating your ABAP add-on to SAP HANA. Then we offer, of course, some possibilities to explore SAP HANA in the cloud, for example, on Amazon Web Services. And, of course, we offer also specific certification scenarios for integration scenarios based on SAP Business Suite powered by SAP HANA. If you want to get more detailed information about SAP HANA, SAP is offering a lot of trainings and, of course, offering also a lot of information which is for free on the internet. There's, for example, the SAP HANA Academy, where you find hundreds of videos about different aspects of SAP HANA. SAP is also offering the Open SAP. That is a kind of online academy where you can sign in and participate in training, in online training. For example, currently there is a HANA development training running, and this training is completely for free, and it runs over several weeks, and you have to spend a couple of hours per week to participate in this training, but as said before, it's completely for free. And then, of course, you have the, let's say, classroom trainings. As before, there are many trainings available for SAP HANA, looking into different aspects, for example, SQL Basics for HANA, or implementation modeling, data provisioning, or a specific training for other programming for SAP HANA as well. And then also interesting could be the general ABAP performance trainings, so that you could look into the performance improvements options you have with SAP HANA. So now I would start to look a little bit more deeply in our new service, the service the Integration and Certification Center provides. Audience for this service are SAP partners who have already implemented an ABAP add-on and hopefully certified by SAP. We want to provide a specific service for this partner so that these partners are able to migrate their ABAP add-on to the SAP HANA platform, so, or correctly speaking, to the SAP Business Suite powered by SAP HANA. Because, as I try to point out in the first part of the session, SAP HANA is not just a different database, but because of the possibilities to use the column store as well as the option to push down your code to the database level, you have a lot of possibilities which SAP HANA offers, and you should be aware of it, as well as you should be aware of the hiccups which you have if you don't do anything and just let your existing ABAP on running on an SAP HANA platform. It will, most probably it will run, but maybe the performance would not be optimal. Okay, how would this process look like? We would first start some kind of kickoff, so you would have a session with an ICC technical consultant, and you would describe your solution, and we would discuss the further processing. The next step would be that we would provide you with an introduction session, which would take up to one and a half business day, and there we would give you an in-detail introduction SAP HANA and to the aspects you have to take care of, and also an introduction into the performance and code analysis tools SAP offers. Then the next step would be that you would provide us with your ABAP add-on. We would install this ABAP add-on in our SAP HANA landscape and do some static code checks. So, as mentioned before, the code inspector of SAP has been enhanced for specific SAP HANA checks, and we would apply these checks for you. And depending on whether partner provides us with test data, we would also do some performance tests and, for example, check some SQL traces on these test data. After this has been done by the ICC, you would get a so-called assessment report, where we would report what we have done and what our findings are. So if we could identify critical coding, then we would, of course, point out what this coding is, and not only this, but we would also provide you with some recommendations how you can change and improve your coding. And, of course, we would be available for a final discussion of the results we have provided you with the assessment report. So, of course, there would be some fees involved in this service. So the standard package would be 5,000 euro, including system provisioning for your ABAP add-on deployment in our test landscape. So here a short overview about the whole process. Of course, we would have to start with a contract signed by a partner and SAP as well for this roadmap assessment service. Then we would start the workshop. An ICC technical consultant would arrange this workshop with representatives of the vendor. Then the vendor would provide us with the ABAP add-on, as well as some information about what this add-on is supposed to do. So some kind of functional description, what is the purpose of this add-on, so that we can understand what this add-on does and what are the most important functions of this add-on. After this, we would start with the deployment of this add-on in our test landscape, do the code checks, and depending on the availability, some performance checks. After that, we would compile an assessment report, send out the assessment report to the vendor, and afterwards discuss the report with some partner representatives, together, of course, with an ICC technical consultant who have drawn together this report. How will this report look like? The first section would be that we have some vendor information, so name of the vendor, for example, the namespace of the ABAP add-on, what's technical background, the business background. Then in section 2, we would summarize and list the findings of the static code checks, as well as some recommendations for improving your coding. Then, depending on the availability of test data, we would present the results of our performance analysis, as well as presenting some recommendations if we think that performance could be improved. What will be the benefits if you consume the service? Hopefully, your ABAP add-on would be ready for running on the SAP Business Suite powered by SAP HANA. it would be ready in the sense that it's not only syntactically correct, but that it is also, from a performance point of view, no degradation for your customers. And, of course, we have to keep in mind that more and more customers are migrating this SAP Business Suite to SAP Business Suite to SAP HANA. And because many of our customers also make use of partner ABAP add-ons, they want to have this add-on on the SAP HANA platform as well. So that, therefore, there's a real business background that an ABAP add-on vendor should be motivated to make his ABAP add-on available on the SAP HANA platform as well. So that's more or less safeguarding current investment, but you also have a chance to do something completely new, because SAP brings together online transactional processing as well as online analytical processing. So the next step could be that you think about coming up with quite new solutions or with some functional enhancements of your ABAP add-on, which make use of the possibilities of SAP HANA. And the purpose of our assessment service is that we will introduce you into the potential benefits you can have and see which functions you can use, for example, making use of, for example, in calculation use, and make you aware of all the tools which you can use for doing a performance analysis on your own. So it should really be an introduction, so an enablement, so that you are ready for doing further improvements on your own. Good, so this was the presentation.